Here we go, guys. Yet another lunchtime live stream. Thank you guys for joining me yet again for, this is what, number 62, I think? Let me make sure that I got that right. Yes, number 62 for the lunchtime live streams while I'm working from home, because why the heck not? And today for lunch, I saw these awesome looking boxes of cookies. La Moderna. I don't even recognize that, so I assume that it's some kind of either Central American or maybe a Mexican country. We've got pictures of Central America on the back, talking about Noche Buena. I'm sure I'm butchering all of these pronunciations, but there you go. But anyway, I was at my local, oh gosh, what is it called? Grocery outlet, bargain market. A place that's kind of cool to visit every now and then, where they've got like cheap stuff that you can buy, interesting kitschy items, discontinued items, and this box of cookies is actually wrapped in plastic. So I gotta open that up. It's kind of strange, but there you go. And I'm looking forward to this because I mean it's a beautiful looking box. I mean, nice colors. Really delicious looking cookies. I hope that they're this big. I don't think they're going to be, but... Oh, excellent, excellent. I get these two little trays of cookies, which are, again, wrapped in plastic. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. I believe these are cinnamon sugar cookies, and they just smell so, so good. Like, nice spice, like molassesy smell coming off of them. Really crisp too. Like it's more like a cracker than it is a regular cookie. Delicious. Oh my gosh. I just noticed these wafers still packaged in yet more plastic. I guess these guys really take their packaging seriously. Make sure that you gotta work for your cookies. I saw the pictures on the front of this box, and I thought that these cookies would actually go really well with coffee, but it's been really hot and muggy around lately. So not doing coffee, instead just doing straight up milk. So thank you guys for joining me yet again. Like I mentioned, as long as I am still working from home, I'm planning on doing these live streams just whenever I can, because it's kind of fun to hang out with you guys and chat with you guys. And I do want to know, how is everyone doing out there? How is everyone in the outside world? Because I don't get to travel around anymore too much. I'm not hanging out with folks nearly as much as I used to. So I do want to like reach out and know how everyone's doing. I just love to chat with you guys about interesting stuff. And of course, field any questions that you guys have. Oh, thank you, Fabian, for joining the live stream. Asks, do you eat a lot of high-fat foods before a run? Before a run, no, I don't tend to eat very much at all before going for a run. Mainly because running kind of like, you know, there's a lot of bouncing and stuff involved with running, so I try to try to keep my stomach at least pretty empty. I find that if I eat too much before a run, then I just get kind of like, I just don't feel super good. I feel a little bit bloated, like everything's kind of backing up a little bit. I'm going to try this chocolate sandwich cookie. Looks kind of like, I don't know, biscotti cream sandwich cookie, maybe? So far, I'm really digging this cookie platter. La Moderna cookie platter. Lots of beautiful looking cookies. Really, really pretty cookies. They're not just good to look at, but also delicious to eat. A wonderful lunch, if you ask me. So I do get a lot of questions about like how I don't get fat, how I avoid getting fat, how I lose weight, how I stay so lean, all those good things. And it seems like it's the kind of thing that people always ask about, just regardless. So I'm probably not going to share anything new today on this live stream. These are all questions that I've talked about before, but people do seem to love to talk about it. So why the heck not? I don't mind recapping this stuff because it is kind of like an evergreen subject. And Fabian, thanks again for the excellent questions. Asking about high-fat foods in my diet, like oils and stuff. Yeah, of course. I don't avoid fat too much. I used to eat like a really low-fat, low-sugar, high-protein diet, and I was extremely skinny back then. I think like really unhealthily so. And I always had like really bad fluctuating energy back when I did that. So I've after I decided to go on a short-term like ketogenic diet, basically to break an addiction to sugar and high-carb foods. I got away from the idea of trying to avoid fat. I think it wasn't fat so much. Like I didn't mind eating avocados and olive oil and stuff like that. It was more of the saturated fats that I wanted to avoid. And I did find out later that I do have the genetic predisposition to not metabolize saturated fat very well. So it does make sense that if I avoided saturated fat, then it did help me get a little bit thinner, help me stay a little bit leaner. But nowadays, no, I don't avoid fat. As we can see, I'm going to check out the nutritional facts on the back of this thing. Let me see here. These cookies are definitely not low in fat. Oh my goodness. Quite high in fat, actually. Let's see here. One serving of those sandwich cookies has 140 calories and 6 grams of fat, so it's like a third of the calories from fat. And it looks like it's pretty much the same across the board. Let me see. Those wafer cookies, those wonderful pink and white wafer cookies, yellow white wafer cookies, 150 calories with 5 grams of fat, so a little bit lower there, maybe down to almost a third of the calories coming from fat. So yeah, I don't avoid high fat foods. You're asking, is saturated fat bad for lower abdomen fat? I don't think that there's any predisposition to where the fat goes in your body, depending on like where you, what kind of food that you eat. I mean, I assume that it just goes around your entire body. I have noticed that at the end of that stretch of my spring quarter, when I was getting super stressed out, I was starting to get that kind of like that fat tire around my waist. I think that's more to do with high stress, things along those lines, than it is about the kind of stuff that you're eating. So yeah, I think stress has way more to do about it than the kinds of food that you're eating. AJ, thank you for joining the stream. Says you're jealous of my cookie buffet. Dude, go out and get some cookies. They're so accessible and so easy to find everywhere. No, I gotta say again, just like I saw this on the shelf and it just popped out at me. Like that, and like I said, I did buy this at grocery outlet bargain market. For some reason, I have a hard time remembering the name of that store, even though I do go to it, I don't know, once or twice a month or so. And they always sell like discontinued stuff that's close to its expiration date at really, really steep discounts. I think that this was originally priced $6, something like that. And I picked it up for $1.99. So, that's the kind of stuff that you can usually find at that store. For saturated fat, I think the body is just able to metabolize it a lot more quickly than other types of fat. So if you do have a genetic predisposition, I can't remember what the name of the SNP is that you'd want to look up on your like 23andMe test or whatever. But if you get some of those tests, usually they'll give you like an analysis of what the different SNPs mean. So you can look up if you have this kind of predisposition if you want to take one of those genetic tests. So a lot of people do have that predisposition to store saturated fat as adipose tissue instead of burning it as energy. And when it comes to saturated fat and like cholesterol and stuff like that, I think it does have an impact. I think that it's a lot less impactful. The primary thing to watch out for is to have high saturated fat and high glycemic carbohydrates all at the same time, because that causes a lot of oxidative damage that will then cause an increase of like arterial damage, stuff like that. That's where you end up with the high cholesterol in your arteries, which can cause, you know, heart problems, stuff along those lines. But high saturated fat in the absence of high glycemic carbohydrates and high carbohydrate meals and like foods that really jack up your blood sugar, not that big a deal. I think I'm going to finish. No, I'm not going to finish off all those cookies. I want to savor these things. These things are actually really, really delicious. These nice little spice cookies. Speaking of running, since you did bring it up, I also wanted to talk about the kinds of exercises that I do. This is a workout that I did yesterday. Got to rename this. We're going to call this 400 meter intervals with awesome shoes. Yeah. So you see, anytime I do these hard workouts, like this workout was yesterday morning, and this was one of the like 2 or 3 hard workouts that I do a week. I definitely do not try to do super hard workouts every single day. You can see this is my speed graph where I'm going super fast and super slow in these intervals. I was getting really, really tired by the end, so I was taking my time with some of those slow intervals. And you can see my heart rate. This is a graph of my heart rate. My heart rate was getting jacked up, and I was letting it go down pretty low to make sure that I was recovering well between intervals. Yeah, I think those stats aren't super important. But you see my heart rate, my max heart rate was 99% of my overall like total maximum heart rate. And that's not too uncommon when I'm doing those super hard workouts. So I think these kinds of hard workouts are great to do for like maintaining health and maintaining low body fat. If I feel like the kinds of workouts that a lot of people do rely on for like cutting calories and burning calories are this kind of like low and slow, like just moving for as long a period as possible, and those are really crummy. I mean, first of all, you end up eating a ton of food afterwards. They increase your appetite like crazy. But with these super hard workouts, I've noticed that my appetite afterwards is just, it's nothing. Like the thought of eating a lot of food just makes me feel kind of sick. So doing those super hard workouts is a great way to like burn those calories without the danger of like overeating afterwards, because a lot of people do have that like compensatory eating after super hard workouts. And I don't do those too often because that is incredibly stressful on your body, and that will also like increase your cortisol, increase your stress over time, and that's the kind of thing that can lead to having that kind of weird body shape where you get that like kind of pear body shape, or an apple body shape is more common for dudes who have just like a lot of excess adipose tissue on the torso, stuff like that. I did find this pretty interesting study that talks about exercise and insulin resistance, because exercise is super important. I think everybody should know that. I think it's no surprise that, you know, exercise is good for health and things along those lines. However, this was really important specifically for some of the techniques that I use to avoid getting, gaining too much weight. So this is Exercise and Insulin Sensitivity Review. Reading a little bit of the introduction. It says physical activity has been advocated in the treatment of diabetes mellitus, I don't know what that is, formed from as early as the 5th century. More recent epidemiological studies have provided evidence that the level of physical activity is associated with an incidence of non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, NIDDM. Indeed, the risk of developing non-insulin dependent diabetes in women who engage in exercise at least once a week has been estimated to be 33% lower than for their sedentary counterparts. So blah, 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 blah. Interesting stuff. They did their studies. I'm not going to read the bulk of this because it's super dense, science-y garbage that I don't think anybody can follow. Just skip right to the conclusion. That's the important part of these studies. All right, so although... let me see. Is this interesting? Yes. Although non-insulin dependent diabetes is characterized by peripheral insulin resistance, plasma glucose utilization during exercise is probably increased compared to healthy counterparts. This is caused by glucose mass action together with unimpaired contraction-stimulated glucose uptake. That just means like when you're moving your muscles are grabbing your blood sugar out of your bloodstream to actually make sure that you have the energy to move your muscles, basically. So sciencey talk for when you exercise. So during and immediately after acute exercise, glucose uptake in the skeletal muscle is enhanced through increased glucose supply and an increased plasma membrane associated GLUT4. That, I think right there is like the super important bit that people should take away from basically this entire study, and why it's kind of interesting in the context here. So what this is saying is that immediately after you're exercising, then your body is a lot more insulin sensitive, so that your muscles are able to like soak up any glucose that's in your bloodstream a lot more quickly. And it even goes on to say that these effects disappear within 2 hours after exercise is discontinued. And a lot of people are probably familiar with that magical like 30-minute to 2 hour window when after you exercise, when you need to get your protein shake basically so that your body is able to actually like utilize it. And it's no coincidence that the 2 hour window is also mentioned in this study. It's basically like for 2 hours after you exercise, your body's able to utilize sugar and nutrients that are in your bloodstream a lot more effectively. So it'll soak it up super, super quickly. So like the practical takeaway there is if you're going to eat something that's really high in carbohydrate, really high in sugar, or just really high in calories in general, then it might be a good idea to try to engage in some kind of exercise. Now, it doesn't have to be a ton. I mean, like before I do these streams, you know, I'm on the ground doing a bunch of push-ups and then doing a bunch of squats and doing a bunch of, I shouldn't say a bunch, like one set of push-ups, one set of squats, and one set of pull-ups or something like that, because that just increases my muscles' ability to uptake all the sugar that I'm eating. So that just means that if I increase my insulin sensitivity in that way, then the GLUT4 transporters, I should mention GLUT4 transporters, if you're not familiar with those, which I don't know why anybody would be. I mean, kind of a strange thing. GLUT4 stands for glucose something transporter. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, it's this stuff that goes into your blood that basically like, or it doesn't go into your blood, it goes into your tissues to basically like signal that they need to be ready to uptake glucose from your blood. So if your muscles have a bunch of GLUT4 in them, then it's like your muscles are really ready to pull all that glucose out of your bloodstream to refill your glycogen stores. So that means that if you do exercise immediately before eating a really high sugar meal or something super sweet, or if you're eating a big tray of cookies, like so, then it just means that all that sugar that's going into your blood is going to get soaked up by your muscles and taken into your glycogen stores instead of stored as body fat, as adipose tissue. Interesting stuff, definitely. So yeah, like if you're going to do an eating contest, if you're going to eat a big tray of cookies, something like that, sneaking off to the single occupant bathroom in a restaurant or whatever to go do like 20 squats, 20 air squats, something like that. Believe it or not, that's probably going to make sure that when you're eating your meal 20 minutes later or 40 minutes later or however long later, just all those carbs from that meal are going to get soaked up into your glycogen stores instead of stored on your love handles. Excellent stuff. So I know some people are afraid of doing too much cardio exercise, but of course I love doing cardio exercise, is what I do. But basically, like I mentioned before, I try to avoid too much of that chronic cardio, just sticking around and let that like middling kind of hard, feel like I'm working, but not working too hard. kind of cardio zone. So I'm either like working super hard or I'm not working too hard at all. And I find that that's a good middle ground for like getting in that exercise, increasing my fitness, and not falling into that trap of getting super hungry after exercising and just eating compensatory calories afterwards. Delicious. Yeah, I think the last bit that's pretty interesting, speaking of high-fat foods and things along those lines, man, I'm noticing that my forearms are looking mighty skinny on this live stream. I think I'm not doing enough, like, grip work, stuff like that. I certainly have not been doing any rock climbing lately, which is super unfortunate, so I think my forearms are kind of withering away a little bit. Still got amazing quads because I'm still running quite frequently. So the last bit that I think is pretty interesting is a ketogenic diet. And folks who have heard me talk about this before might remember that like I really don't advocate too many people go on a ketogenic diet. I think it is a very difficult diet to maintain. And there are a lot easier ways to like lose weight and to have a good relationship with food, basically. I think that a keto diet is really useful for people who feel like they're bothered by eating. Like they don't want to go out of their way to eat. So it's something that I do when I'm like on a business trip or something like that, where I don't know if I'm going to be able to have access to good, healthy food regularly. And I don't want to live off of just junk. So if I go on a short-term ketogenic diet, then it helps me regulate my hunger, helps me, go significant periods of time without eating, without a dip in my energy. But why is it interesting in this context, you may ask? So let's check the abstract and the intro of this interesting study that I looked up. A study called Ketosis, Ketogenic Diet, and Food Intake Control, a complex relationship. Interesting title. Sounds kind of clickbaity, but got some interesting stuff in it. So, again, I looked over this. I'm not going to go through the entire text of this because just like any other study, it's pretty dense. Let's see. So, starting from the top, says, though the hunger reduction phenomenon reported during ketogenic diets is well known, the underlying molecular and cellular mechanisms remain uncertain. Ketosis has been demonstrated to exert an anorexigenic effect via cholecystokinin, I think is cholecystokinin, I believe is how you pronounce that. Anorexigenic just means like stuff that makes you less hungry, basically. That's all that means. It probably sounds like a certain eating disorder, but has nothing to do with that eating disorder. Let's see. So we have a CCK release while reducing orexigenic signals, which is the opposite of anorexigenic, just things that make you more hungry, basically, e.g. via ghrelin. Ghrelin is one of those hormones, ghrelin and leptin, two well-known hormones that regulate hunger. Let's see here. However, ketone bodies seem to be able to increase food intake through AMP-activated protein kinase, AMPK, phosphorylation, sorry about that, gamma aminobutyric acid, aka GABA. People might recognize GABA as like one of those feel-good neurotransmitters, and the release and production of adiponectin. I'm not sure what adiponectin is. I'll have to look that one up. The aim of this review is to provide a summary of our current knowledge of the effects of a ketogenic diet on food control in an effort to unify the apparently contradictory data into a coherent picture. Now, this was a study done in 2015, so it was quite a while ago. So I wonder if they have any like more good data on this, because unfortunately, when I scrolled down, I looked through a little bit through the meat of this, and they were talking about different ways that ketone bodies affect different hormones, things along those lines. So unfortunately, I read the conclusion. It says, although the hunger effects of the ketogenic diet is well documented, the main mechanisms of action are still elusive. So these guys basically said, like, a ketogenic diet suppresses hunger. We don't know why, but it suppresses hunger. And indeed, if you do have a beta hydroxybutyrate supplement, I have noticed that, or if you're on a ketogenic diet and you do raise your blood ketone levels, I've noticed that like I can go hours, I can go all day without eating and just feel like my energy is just like this level bar, just never moves, just just never feel hungry. It's an incredibly strange feeling. Let's see. So it goes on to talk a little bit more about how beta hydroxybutyrate can be both orexogenically or anorexigenically, can act both orexogenically or anorexigenically. And again, that has been my experience. That's very true. When I went on a ketogenic diet to kick that sugar habit, I actually ended up gaining weight instead of losing weight. I also got really, really good at burning fat, so I could go for days in an Ironman triathlon and just never get tired. It was very strange. Let's see here. In the orexogenic mechanism, it increases the circulating level of adiponectin, increasing brain GABA and MK phosphorylation. Oh my goodness, that is a difficult word to say. Phosphorylation and decreasing brain ROS production. I don't know what ROS is. Some other acronym I failed to look up. The anorexigenic mechanisms trigger a main normal glucose meal response, increasing circulating post-meal free fatty acids, thus reducing cerebral something or another, NPY, I don't know what that is, maintaining CCK meal response, and decreasing circulating ghrelin. It can be postulated that the net benefit of the contrasting stimuli results in a general reduction in the perceived hunger and food intake. More studies are needed to explore the mechanisms of potentially beneficial effects of a ketogenic diet on food control. Boom. So these guys basically looked at how ketogenic diet affects a bunch of different brain hormones, things like that. Now, circulating GABA can do one of two things. It can make you feel like super good and a little bit tired, make you want to eat more. Sometimes it can make you want to eat a little bit less. Sorry about that. I think I just hit my microphone. But I think that the effects on leptin ghrelin is probably a little bit more interesting. There are some studies who say that ketone bodies have no effect on leptin and ghrelin. Others say that it does affect leptin and ghrelin. So I don't know where the current science is on that. Fabian, you're asking, thank you for all the questions, by the way. You're asking about restricting calories for teenagers and intermittent fasting. I don't know too much about the effects on younger individuals. I mean, I suppose, like, if you don't have the calories to grow, you're not going to grow. So it seems pretty straightforward. Yeah, I don't think anybody under the age of like, I shouldn't say that, under the age of like 18 or something should really worry too much about restricting calories. And especially if they're not, if they are not like severely obese, probably not a good idea to be thinking too much about that. Because anything that happens before, you know, you get those growth spurts out, it's, yeah, you're gonna kind of like stretch out, basically. I think is the way it does. And you ask about intermittent fasting. I don't know about intermittent fasting. I don't think there are too many people who do that. I should say too many people who are super young who do that. I don't know how that would affect younger folks, younger teenagers. There are a lot of people who say that intermittent fasting is like a panacea that will cure everything that ails you. But I think that is true of anybody who's on just about any diet. Craigor, thank you for joining the stream. Asking how many calories do I burn in a day? I don't know, maybe 2,000, 2 to 3,000, maybe, depending on how much activity I'm doing. I probably do have a lower like basal metabolic rate than most people. I've noticed that when I work out super hard, my like if I've got a heart rate monitor on, I get a little bit more accurate calorie burning data, and I tend to burn like 2/3 or 3/4 the amount of calories that most other people do whenever I'm running with them. So I do have a pretty low basal metabolic rate, just because I'm like I have the Toyota Prius of bodies. I am super efficient. I can run for days with burning fewer calories. But I do work out every single day. AJ, you said, man, I miss that good old teenage metabolism. Yeah, it was kind of nice to have that weird, like, ignorance is bliss kind of idea of the way, like an idea of the world where you didn't have a good idea of the way that all these things affect your body. And yeah, it was so great. AJ, I love that. Says, no, you're the Honda Fit, not Prius. Maybe I'll call myself something like a Tesla or something like that. I think that's a little bit sexier, a little bit cooler than a Honda Fit. I'll take it though, because like I know that I am not like a great, powerful athlete by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a very, very efficient athlete. That is for dang sure. But Fabian, you did mention intermittent fasting. It's really more about your total calorie intake. Like I think there's plenty of studies out there that have shown that intermittent fasting doesn't really affect your metabolism negatively, and you really avoid all of the negative effects of being on a hypocaloric diet as long as you are in a oh gosh, what do you call it? Like a calorie maintaining diet. You're equaling your calories in with your calories out, basically. Because I mean, intermittent fasting is not about reducing your total calorie intake. It's just about squeezing all those calories into one little bit of the day, basically. So if you usually eat 2,000 calories a day on a regular diet, and then you start intermittent fasting, you might just eat all those 2,000 calories just in one meal. So that's basically like, yeah, intermittent fasting isn't going to stunt your growth if you do it right. Oh my goodness. I love these cookies. These cookie platters are really amazing. I'm going to have to see if they have any more of these back at the bargain market. Mm. They're not Oreos, but these La Maderna sandwich cookies are very, very good. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me again. This is going to be the last cookie that I eat for lunch. I think that I've had plenty of sugar. Got lots and lots of energy now that I need to burn off somehow. And with that, I'm going to take off for the rest of the day. Thank you guys for joining me for the live stream. I always love hanging out with you guys. Always love the back and forth that we have. I do want to make sure that everybody out there is staying safe, staying healthy, all those good things. Make sure you're using your noggin, not putting yourself in dangerous situations, which unfortunately means things like getting together with groups of people nowadays. So, who knew? There's been lots of news about what's been going on July 4th. Interesting to see how the July 4th, Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest is going to shake out. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But we'll just have to wait and see. Just a couple of weeks away for that. Maybe less than 2 weeks away, just 10 days away, 11 days away, thereabouts. Week and a half-ish. I don't know. Something like that. I'm sure you folks can look at your calendar and see. All right, guys. With that, I'm going to take off. So until tomorrow, peace out. You guys take it easy. Have a good one. All those good things.